Imagine a world where humanity pursued unity over division. Imagine a world where humanity acknowledged the oneness of everything in the universe. Imagine a world where humanity chose love and light over everything else. It's Not My Credit to Take explores the stories of people from all walks of life who seek to uplift humanity and restore Christ consciousness on this planet. Their unique journeys of tapping into their gifts, talents, and the infinite consciousness are amazing, and their willingness to share them to wake up humanity to their true essence and potential is even more remarkable. Get ready to laugh, to cry, and to be inspired. I'm your host, Dr. Ed Slover, and welcome to the It's Not My Credit to Take podcast. Hello, Amanda. How are you today?
I'm so great, and I'm so happy to be chatting to you. So, yeah, thank you so much.
I'm really glad you're here as well. My guest today is Amanda Kate. Amanda is a self mastery facilitator who flips the current paradigms of what it truly means to be a master of self. As a committed student of energy and vibration, she uses her inner oracle, sage, and nurturing creativity to allow people to tap into their innate, abundant nature. By embodying the lessons life has presented her with, Amanda has transformed knowledge into wisdom and helps others in a deeply experiential and soulful way that allows them to anchor deeply into inner peace and freedom. Always growing, developing, and learning new ways of being, she teaches others to heal traumas and hurts so they can live as their full, divine, sovereign selves. Amanda, welcome to the It's Not My Credit to Take podcast.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be chatting to you today.
Me too. Me too. Why don't we get started by having
Mhm.
you share a little bit more about you and how you ended up where you are in your life?
I always joke that anyone who goes down this path has not gotten there because it's been all roses and sunshine. So, yeah, look, there's been lots of different, I guess, traumas in my life. I always joke with my clients that if I don't have the exact t shirt, I got something that'll fit you. Um, you know, it's been a big life of experience, but into that, it has been such a beautiful journey of, I guess, stripping back what I've been told I was and stripping back all of those societal messaging that I deeply embodied as myself to actually, I guess, reconnect to who and what I am and how I can therefore bring that more into the world with more of me in the picture. So,
So,
yeah.
who are you? What did you discover about healing and overcoming those traumas that you referenced?
I think for me, it was recognizing that most of what I was acting to and living as true were stories. It was stories other people had put on me because of, place in the family or because of who people expected me to be or because of, the class system, that I was born into. That and also the church that I was born into. There were a lot of stories around that, and we were very much raised with that guilt, shame, blame type mentality. And once I started to really strip back, I guess you recognize for me, it started with recognizing that divinity within me, the fact that, I am part of the divine makeup of the universe, but also recognizing that I am messy as hell and that, I'm not always going to behave in this spiritual way and I'm not always going to be the most resourceful person and I'm going to screw it up, probably more often than I get it right. But having grace and compassion for myself that I'm always doing the best that I can in any circumstance, whether that's wonderful or less than wonderful. But it's also then how do you repair after the fact? How do you make amends for your less graceful behavior once it's happened to say, you know what, my bad. That wasn't my best self. And, I'm sorry you had to experience that. How do we move forward? And so coming into a much more collaborative, connective way of being, recognizing that life is going to throw stuff at us. And I think there's this really strange phenomenon, whatever you want to call it, where everybody seems to think that life should be all roses and sunshine. And when you're spiritual, everything goes well. And, life is this amazing, not even roller coaster. They kind of expect that once you've done the work, it's just all laid out in front of you. But there are constantly layers I'm unpeeling and unpacking. And is that story actually true about myself, or is it not? Is this just something I'm believing and therefore acting this way? So there's a lot of self reflection that goes into it, and a lot of holding myself accountable when things don't go my way. How do I navigate this with as much grace and compassion as I can muster in the moment?
What was the turning point for you in terms of the programming you received as a child from the adults in your life? You referenced the stories that you were told at church,
Mm.
guilt, blame, shame, everything that gets baked into that cake.
Yeah.
What was that turning point? Was it is a singular moment? Was it a series of moments over a period of time?
Uh,
What was that for you?
I joked for a long time that I was bouncing along what I thought was rock bottom, and then I'd fall down a new hole and go, "Oh, so this is rock bottom," and then I'd bounce along again and find a whole new level to drop to. I guess the catalyst was really asking myself the question: Am I living the life I'd be happy for my children to live?
Mhm.
And that came out as a big fat no, because I was in an unhealthy, toxic marriage. I was getting sicker by the day. And yet I'd go to the doctor and they'd be like, you're the healthiest sick person we've seen. And, your bloods are all fine. And they'd be looking at this surface level part of myself. And that's really what drove me down the natural therapies path, was because I started to go, Western medicine cannot see. And by the way, this is not knocking Western medicine. They are super needed. And I love what they bring to the world. And they've saved friends of mine lives. They've saved my life at time. There's a lot of great stuff there, but I find it is so mechanically based. What's going on wrong in your body? And therefore, what do we give you to fix that? What was going on wasn't for me physical, it was emotional, it was mental, it was spiritual. It was like I was living in this void trying to tick all these boxes in life that I'd been told I should tick. But getting that balance sheet was making me miserable, depressed, sick, tired. Just I felt like it was like, what the hell am I living for? Surely life has got more to offer me than this, putting up with constant criticism and shaming and abuse, quite frankly. And being able to then, I guess, take a step back. And my first way into it was really through, I guess, more traditional psychology. But through my psychologist, I also found a kinesiologist, which is more the energetic kinesiology. And I realized how much stuff my body was holding on to, because it wasn't what good girls expressed, or it wasn't what the types of people like me were supposed to express in this world. And, men and women, pretty much everyone has this narrowly defined, you're allowed to express these emotions and anything else is not okay. So I spent so much of my life pushing stuff down and not acknowledging what was going on, and just not listening to what my intuition, what my body, what, the divine was saying to me. This is not right, wrong path, go back. This, dead end. And so it wasn't one event. That question became a guiding light for me for a while there, of what do I want to show my children is acceptable? How do I want them to love future partners? How do I want them to be loved by future partners? Because what I'm displaying in my marriage is not at all what I want for them. And that gave me I guess, the impetus to actually get up and leave a really terrible situation, because I didn't want that for them, and I didn't want to be displaying it. It's that monkey see, monkey do. And I knew why I got into that marriage eventually, but I didn't want my kids playing out that generational pattern of, you stay because that's what you've damn well been told you have to do, and you've made your bed, you lie in it type thing. Well, hang on, yeah, I made this bed, but who's to say I can't buy a new bed, buy some new linen, and actually have a comfortable bed to lie in? Who's told me that because I at 24 made a stupid decision to marry someone who was not right for me, who says that I need to live that out for the next 70 years and become sick and miserable and put up with abuse? It's, I guess it just started to blow my mind that that was the story that I was living as true. And would I have loved my marriage to last? Of course I would have. Nobody walks down the aisle and goes, gee, I reckon I give it 5 years. People go down with the idea that, this is forever, or I certainly did. I can't talk for everyone, of course. That's a generalization that I, I shouldn't put out there. But I certainly went into it with this idea of forever. However, realistically, when I look back, that could have never been the case. I was young, I was silly, I was acting on all of those stories I'd been true about myself. I didn't think I deserved any better. I didn't think I was worthy of, all of the love that I've now welcomed into my life.
It occurs to me as you were describing that programming and conditioning,
Mm.
we unwittingly bought a bill of goods.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know about you, but as I've unpacked what I thought I believed to arrive at what I do in fact believe,
Yeah.
Amanda, I want my money back.
I know. I know, right? I know. And look, let's face it, 100, 200 years ago, marriage was about a business agreement. It was about land and, and status and class and all of those different things, but it was a business agreement. Now, I mean, the idea of marriage for love is a relatively, new phenomenon, but we're also not taught what actual true partnership and love looks like. I mean, you look at all of the fairy stories and you look at all of the rom-coms and you look at all of the way that love is portrayed, and very rarely, I believe it's portrayed in the way that it is, where I'm going to love you warts and all. And you know what? I'm going to love you because of your warts. I'm going to love you. I mean, the partner I have now, it's a completely different scenario. We've both come into it second time round, but we both therefore understand what mistakes we made in the past, know that we're going to keep making some of those because we're human, and our wiring kind of goes back to some of those old patterns at times. But also, both of us want this to be different, and we want it to be mutually loving, mutually respectful. We want to support each other when the other's down. There's all of these different things that, realistically would make a really boring movie. But that's what love is. Like, let's face it. We've been through, I mean, I can't believe it's only end of February now when we're recording this, almost March. It's like this year has thrown so many challenges already. But the one thing I can rely on is that he's by my side. And those sorts of, people talk about being together through thick and thin and all of those sorts of things. But I think that's where we need to break some of these things that are true in certain circumstances down into nuance and really get into those gritty conversations. And I think that's sometimes where we lose things in today's society. We want to go into right, wrong, black, white, yes, no, you're either with me or you're against me. It's like this constant polarizing. But what we need to do is come into the middle ground and start to understand some of the nuance. Well, why do you believe that? And let's have a bit of a conversation about, how much stuff over the last 5 years has been you're either pro this or anti this. Well, hang on, there's some pros over here and there's some antis over here, and that's what I'm weighing up my decision on. But people kind of pick a camp and they double down in it, and they're not even open to what else may exist. And you think about these things. If let's face it, we're not going to like everybody in this world. It'd be nice if we did, but some people are our cup of tea and some people aren't. But it's then not put down to, well, I just don't like this person. It's, well, what about me don't you like? Are you racist? Are you sexist? Are you this? Are you that? Are you having a go at me because of my sexual, like, it's like, no, I just don't, resonate with you as a human. It doesn't mean I'm against any of your choices or think you should choose different, but that part doesn't come into it anymore. It's like you throw a label on someone who doesn't agree with you, and that's the camp that you keep them in. And I think this is part of, the growth that I've done is, I can love your decisions, I can love where you've come to. Doesn't mean I want to spend my time with you. And it doesn't mean I want you in my inner circle.
That's such a great point. We don't live in a society or culture that values true, meaningful dialogue.
Mm,
We pick sides, as you mentioned, and we have competing monologues where basically all we're doing is screaming at one another. And you know what the rub to that is, Amanda?
yeah. Mm,
We actually think it does something good whenever
yeah.
we do that. It's like, you know what?
Yeah.
I'm just gonna yell louder than you and then feel proud of myself for having won the quote argument. Meanwhile,
Yeah.
I haven't heard a single thing that you've said out loud.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
it really
Because
is
we're
the
so busy trying to double down
that's
on
right.
our belief system. Because if we hold a lot of our beliefs up to the light, excuse me, but we find there a lot of bullshit.
Yeah, agreed.
Like, if we truly hold a lot of, I mean, I hold up some of my old beliefs and I'm like, whoa, girl, you were so off. And I guess I constantly move through the world in that, well, if I've been wrong about all of this other stuff, everything I believe now, I could be wrong about. And am I prepared to be wrong? Well, actually, I am, because my life has improved because I've realized how, and again, it's not really right and wrong, but we're using those words because it fits. It's not even black and white, right and wrong. There's this whole, gray scale in between. And what do and this is where we go into that nuance, people shout down the fact, well, your truth doesn't matter because there's only the truth. Well, actually, there are things that are true to me that are not true to you, and that won't be true to my partner, and that won't be true to my children. And, you know, because I'm seeing life from a different perspective, because I've got all of my stories, whether I've held them up to the light and gone, oh, I don't know that this fits anymore, or whether I still believe them, there's all of these things that feed into why I believe the truths that I believe. And people can take it and leave it, and I'm happy with that. We don't have to believe exactly the same things. But I also find that when we bring nuance into conversation, we find that we have so much more in common with other humans than we have not in common with them.
Yeah.
And once you start to recognize that, there is always a place that you can meet somebody else.
I want to explore
Mm,
something that you had said earlier and connect it to what we're just talking about. You had said earlier about recognizing the divinity
mm,
within you. Now, my original thought on that was, wow, how far has Amanda come? Because she kept hitting new rock bottoms and was able to awaken to the divinity inside of her, which is really, really impressive considering how far you had to move. And I guess my question in bringing it back to what we're just talking
mm,
about is for you or anyone that you've known or worked with, how much of that process has to do with the dissolving of our egos, where then we're able to examine our beliefs critically,
mm.
examine our beliefs and look at them and say, you know what? Okay, so these just happen to be wrong. I no longer have any egoic attachment or emotional attachment to this. And whenever we're able to do that, we can do a better job of recognizing the divinity in others. Does anything I said just then make any sense?
Yeah. Now, I do want to pick up on something here because I actually believe our ego is a vital part of us navigating this 3D world. So I don't subscribe to killing off any part of us, dissolving any part of us in that sense, because our ego helps us know what's safe, what's not, what is our path, what is not. It's like the I guess that primitive aspect of ourself that gives us a sense of self. We need a sense of self in this world. You need to be you because we are all individual parts of the collective whole. And so you are your own divine expression of that, and so am I. Now, as a result, I think that what we do is, again, we just want to get rid of the ego because the ego's clouding it all, and the ego's wrong, and the ego's bad, well, no, it's not. It helps us navigate. So what I look at it is a tempering of the ego. Part of my biggest problem was I had no sense of self. I thought I was so worthless and unlovable, and I didn't actually believe I should be here. But you know what? The divine put me here for a reason. So I've actually had to develop a healthy sense of self to be able to navigate this 3D world and kind of come from, one extreme into this middle place. People with an overdeveloped sense of self, so people who tend to be born towards, say, the top of society, whether that be, into the upper classes, whether that be, um, and I hate saying this because it is, I don't want it to be disparaging. I love what, but in most cultures, men are seen as more superior than women. Now, as a result, if you get born into that, and again, love men, don't get me wrong, my partner is a beautiful human being, and there are a lot of men I love in my life. So this is not a disparaging at all, by the way. But, they tend to have this slightly overdeveloped sense of ego. They have almost too much of a sense of self. Now, that part perhaps needs to be tempered down so that they can come into healthy communion with other people. I needed to develop a sense of self. I've seen other people who would probably, benefit from tempering their ego down and not thinking that they themselves are this godlike creature. And again, I am generalizing. It's not always just men that get into that, but I do tend to find if you are born in a more superior place, so to speak, that you do tend to have that overdeveloped sense of self. So for all of us, I think it's about bringing it back into the middle, recognizing, to get into the biblical thing, Jesus was 100% human and 100% divine. He was both things. And we are the same. We are 100% human and 100% divine. We are part of this collective conscious that makes up the tapestry of the world, yet we are individual expressions of that. So how do we temper our egoic self, so to speak, or that sense of rightness, or that sense of, doubling down, or that sense of, our innate survival mechanisms, to be able to come into this place of going, we are all doing the best we can with the tools we have available to us. And if we look within ourselves, the divine is always there because the divine is in everything. The divine touches everything. It has created everything. One of the things it came in one day in clinic and I was like, wow, that's pretty profound. That clearly didn't come from me. I said to one of my clients who was really tough on the self-flagellation, and I get it. I've been there. I've got the t-shirt. And she said, I said to her, every time we are that horrible to ourselves, we're effectively telling the divine that they messed up by putting us here. I don't think I've got enough balls to basically turn around and say that to the divine. They didn't make a mistake in putting me here. They put me here for a reason. Now, I may not be able to see that reason because guess what? I'm not the divine. I am not the creator of all things. I am not the infinite intelligence of the universe. As much as I have it in me, I am not God. I can touch the God source, I can tap into the God source, but I am not that. So every time I'm really horrible to myself or horrible to others, I'm effectively telling the divine that they made a mistake. I just don't think I have that right. And I guess the more that I've played into that, the more I've recognized that I do tend to have more grace for myself, for others. I catch that negative talk and recognize that that is just conditioning and programming and this skewed idea of how I keep myself safe in this 3D world. But then when I return to that center and that core, I can accept and love that humanity and go, how can I express that better so that I can be more loving, more accepting, more giving, more kind to myself first and then to others?
Yeah. It's really an interesting way to think about it because when we're horrible to ourselves
Mm.
and then we subsequently turn to our creator and say, "You made a mistake," it's like, wait a second. We're telling ourselves that we made a mistake because we're uniquely different expressions of the same thing. I mean,
Yeah.
it
It's very
really
paradoxical and
it
it's
really is.
really out there. But it's also, if you start to hold things into that, of both, I am 100% messy and screwed up and conditioned and all of this, and I'm 100% divine. All of a sudden it's like, okay, well, these two things feel like they should be at opposite ends of the spectrum, but realistically they both exist together in the same smushy meat suit that I'm, currently residing in. So how do I make this work? And I think it allows me to not have to double down on all of my beliefs. It's like, okay, well, I wonder why you think that. I wonder. And it becomes more of this curiosity, and this inquisitiveness, like a child, of going, well, I only believe what I believe because I've lived the life I've lived. Now, if I lived a different life, what else could I believe? And all of a sudden, all these questions start to open up. And I often say that I think the point of healing, or the path to healing, is not necessarily about getting answers to your questions. It's about finding different questions to ask, finding better questions to ask, finding more questions to ask, and then exploring what those questions could mean, and knowing that you could be way off and being okay with that.
And in many ways, that speaks to what you addressed earlier, which is tempering the ego. Because
Mm,
the older I've gotten, the more and more I realize that the quality of my life is determined less by the answers that I'm able to arrive at and more by asking better questions.
yeah.
I love that you address that. What's the relationship to that in achieving self mastery?
I think it's being open to the fact that you don't know everything and you can't know everything and you will never know everything. I believe until I'm sitting at the foot of, I don't know how it kind of works, but if when I'm sitting after I've done this life and we're unpacking it and, all of this kind of stuff, I believe only then will I see the full picture. So at the moment, what I try and do is just bring in a few more colors or textures or light and shade, and try and pack that picture out as much as I can to see where I'm at, what I've got. But it's also not doubling down. Like I say, I've changed so many deep seated beliefs that, well, almost everything I believe could be held up and go, well, I had a conversation with a very, very religious person not that long ago. And they were really, solid in their beliefs. And I really appreciate that. And I was really actually, um, it wasn't even surprised or impressed, but there was like this, oh my God, like you really know what you believe. And that's amazing. And also, I have that belief within me, within certain things. And where can I pick that apart? Are there holes in my argument? Are there flaws? Are there, and so again, I guess when I was younger, I thought I knew more of the answers, and yet supposedly knowing the answers led me down paths that were destructive, that were not good for me, that were unhealthy, that made me sick, that allowed me to be abused, that allowed me to think that I deserved to be abused. Like, that's just so mind blowing in so many ways. Now that I've recognized I don't have many of the answers and I've only got questions, it's like, okay, this is what's happening today. It kind of brings my awareness from having everything sorted out for my whole life to going, okay, today's today. What do I know today to be true? And how do I, make the best of that with what I know today to be true? And maybe I'll learn something today that then will make tomorrow better or different.
It's striking to me how peaceful of what's the best way to say that? How peaceful of an existence or living in that way is. Because I know for me, it was all about having the answer because I craved certainty. And anything resembling uncertainty made me afraid. And it wasn't until I started to be able to master concepts like that that I actually felt like I had more agency in
Yeah.
my life. And you had referenced earlier showing yourself grace and compassion. Some might argue, especially in dogmatic religious circles, some might argue, Amanda, that that is self-serving and selfish by saying, no, I need to master me first, or at least continue working
Mm,
towards self-mastery, because if I don't show up better for myself, I can't possibly show up better for anyone else.
yeah.
How would you address someone that would say, no, that's entirely wrong. What you're describing is the definition of selfishness.
I was listening to Abraham Hicks one day when I was studying, and it was really funny. I just had it playing on the TV, and there was this thing that caught my ear, and I was like, whoa, rewind. Like, I had to listen to it again. They said selfishness does not exist. Now, that was a bit mind blowing for me, but when you think about it, who has ever called you selfish? It's usually someone else who wants you to do something for them that you don't want to do, can't do, whatever it is. So they throw to you that you're selfish. But what they're not looking at is themselves in that, and how that may not serve you and may not be in your highest good. It may not actually be in their highest good. But who's to know? And so once I started to play with that idea, I was like, well, you know what? Every time I've called someone else selfish, it's because they're not giving me what I needed. But you know who was at the root of that? Was I was not giving me what I needed. Huh. Okay, so I'm expecting everyone else to fulfill my needs when I'm not even bothering to take the time to fulfill my needs. And I can tell you, most of my life was about being selfless, doing everything for everyone else. And you know what you end up as? A victim and martyr, because everyone else gets what they need and what they want, and I don't matter. And like, it's just not a pleasant place to live. And that was part of what made me so sick. It's part of what had me put up with the crap I put up with for so damn long. Now, by me looking after my wants and needs, it doesn't mean I don't need or want anything from anyone else, because we're humans. We thrive on connection. We need connection with others. I still need a relationship with my children, with my partner, with my friends, with my community. I need those connections. But the more I look after my own wants and needs, the less demanding I am, the more I show up in service to others rather than being in servitude to them, which means that we're more on this, I guess, equal playing field, because I'm not less than you. And when you're being selfless all the time, guess what? It does what it says on the tin. It makes less and less and less and less of yourself. That's where we get into this no sense of self, needing to build that so that we have a healthier ego in this world. because then we can show up and we can actually, if we're there for ourselves, we can be there for others. But you look at how many people are expecting everyone else to fulfill their needs, yet they're not fulfilling their needs. And that is kind of more down that selfishness route, because everyone else needs to look after me and what I want and what I need, and you are there to please me. Well, hang on, how about you do a bit of looking inwards and see what you need and want, and maybe you could express that in a better way. Maybe if you understood what your needs and wants were, you could fulfill some of those yourself. Again, bring that self agency. And then you actually have more to give to other people, because it's that fill your cup before you give to everyone else, and, put your oxygen mask on and all of that stuff that has become so trite. But when again we put the nuance around it, it is a truth. It's just that most people want to take it again as that little sound bite, rather than actually have the discussion of what does that mean in reality? What does that mean in our daily life? How does that actually play out?
Everything I heard you just describe right then is just a different way of presenting what you presented earlier in our conversation today about your life then and your life now,
Mm,
because it is evident that when we seek external validation, where everyone has to fulfill our needs, we become way out of balance and out of
mm.
whack. And it's not coincidental that
Yeah.
we serve as, the martyr. It's not coincidental that we play the blame card and the victim card comes right out after it. It's not coincidental that I evaluate my decisions and actions based on my being well-meaning and well-intended, and then
Mm.
evaluate your decisions and actions based on whether or not I like the outcome.
Yeah. Yeah. And so many people get stuck in that mindset. And, I even look at things like mum guilt, and that is completely based in that selflessness. You're there to provide for my needs. Well, hang on a minute. The change in my mothering has been phenomenal. And my kids and I often laugh about it, how I was before I found this work and when I was in my marriage, as opposed to how I've been after. They've gone through some really, really big stuff in the last few years. And my thing to them has always been, you know what's right for you. Now, you tap me in and I am there. Like, I'm waiting for the tap in, but I also know you don't need that. You don't need me to fight your battles. I am here and I will give you whatever support I can, but I trust you to get through this because I know you know what's right for you in these situations. And the way they have grown as a result of that blows my mind every single day when I watch them navigating the world. Because I've said to them, yeah, I can do it for you, but I don't need you to need me in that way. They were like, oh, I'm sorry, I've got friends on this day. And I'm like, you should want to hang out with your friends. If you just want to hang out with me at your age, we've got something out of balance and I've not done my job as a mother. You need to want to hang out with your friends. You should be with them. Look, I'll take what I can get. Don't get me wrong. Like, you guys decide to hang out with me and I'm there and I'm all in. But you're not at that part of life. You've moved past that. Now, if I still need them to do that, when they're 16 and 18 as they are now, I've actually not done my job well. Because what I'm doing is I'm creating a codependent relationship. And that's not healthy for them in their futures. It's not healthy for me when they, do leave home, when they do go out into the world, and all of a sudden I'm, in this place of, well, now what do I do? I mean, I have invested the last 16 and 18 to 18 years investing in them, in their time, in their growth, but as it's, the last sort of, I guess, 6 years, I've been gradually extricating myself from that to teach them how to stand on their own 2 feet, to say, like, you tap me in, I'm going to be there no matter how old you are. And I'm sometimes waiting for the tap in, and you get a bit, oh, they don't actually need to tap me in right now, but Mama Bear's there. But it's recognizing that within myself. So, if I am that intricately entwined with somebody else, I'm telling them that I don't trust them to navigate their life, that I don't trust them to stand on their own 2 feet. And what do you think that does to a human being? But to do that for them, I've had to learn how to stand on my own 2 feet, how to trust myself to be able to then pass that to somebody else. And that's just one example. I mean, we can pick that up and put that on so many different relationships within our lives or scenarios within our lives. But that's kind of what I mean by self-mastery, and that flipping the paradigms. It's not about us being better than and us being, masters in this guru type way. It's about us going, how am I disempowering others by rushing in and thinking I am the only one to fix this situation? Because that is not a nice place to be, and I know from experience that's not a nice place to be, because other people would rush in and not give me time to find my tools, to find my inner strength, to find my truth, to be able to live it in the world. It was, this is the way you do things. Oh, okay. There wasn't time to contemplate it. But if we can give that to other people, then we actually get to watch them shine. We get to watch them grow. Yeah, okay, you know what? They are going to fall and they're going to hurt themselves and they're going to end up bloodied and bruised at times. And that's when we go in and we help clean them up and we give them the love and care. And then we go, you know what? You got through that. It's time for you to go back out again.
That's extraordinarily well said. And
Mm.
there's one word I literally have goosebumps. Amanda, the one word just kept resonating with me as you were describing your relationship with your kids, and it's leadership. Like
Mm,
when we use a word like encourage,
mm,
the technical definition of that is we are quite literally giving our courage
mm.
to them, however momentarily.
Yeah.
With respect to empowerment, it functions the same way. I have the positional authority to be able to make this decision for you and tell you how to do it, but it's way more effective to
Mm.
say, you know what, I trust you, whether it's a child, an employee, a sports player. I
A
trust you to be
partner?
able to do this, a
Yeah.
partner, yes. And immaterial of whatever mistakes might be made,
Mm.
I'm giving away my power. And the irony to that is we become more influential in the life of the person that we gave our power to. Do you agree with
Yeah.
that?
I wouldn't even say it's about giving our power to them. I believe it's us standing in our power of, I know that I could go in and fix that. But in doing so, I am disempowering you by me standing back. And I tell you what, it's not an easy place to stand, because like I say, I'm waiting for the tap in. Mama Bear is there. But she also knows that within them, they have that power. They don't need my power and my courage, because my power and my courage come from what I've experienced. They need to learn where their power and their courage comes from in their experience. Because I'm looking at through a lens of a nearly 46-year-old woman. They're 18 and 16. I'm in a completely different realm. My parents, for me, were in a completely different realm. They don't know what it is to be me in this time. We didn't have to deal with social media and constant connection to the outside world. We didn't need, so they are navigating a world that we don't know. We know it from our perspective right now, from how we've experienced it, but we weren't 16 with social media and this constant bombardment. So we actually don't know how to navigate their world. Now, again, that makes a lot of people feel quite helpless. But if we can tell them that we trust them and we know that they've got this within them, And that when they need help to navigate it, we're here. We have some tools that may be useful, but we don't have the answers.
Yeah.
But what we do in that is everybody then gets to tap in to their own divinity, their own experience, their own life view, and work out their path from that, rather than me trying to pick up all of my stuff and put it inside them. Because to be fair, that wouldn't be fair to them anyway. You know, like some of the stuff I've had to go through, I don't want them to navigate, but I know they're probably going to have to navigate some of it,
Yeah.
but they're
And
going to
it's
do it differently.
and it seems like our role, particularly as parents,
Mm,
is to help cultivate agency and confidence
yeah.
in our kids. It kind of ties to the adage, we're not raising children, we're raising adults.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know what we love in adults, we hate in children. And so my daughter was born the perfect adult. And I remember so often I was like, how do I raise this child? Because she came into this world as this perfect adult. And I'm like, I don't want to squash that. But how do I give her enough agency that she can maintain those beautiful qualities, but also get her to navigate this world as a child, which she is? And you know, I know I didn't always get it right. I know I still don't always get it right, but having that awareness of, you know, her determination, her I mean, determination's probably the best word for it, was there from day dot. And yet when you are parenting a child who is that determined, it is, oh my God, you do want to stamp your authority on it, because you're like, hang on a minute, this does not fit into my ease of life, my worldview, my, you know, my belief systems. Like, hang on. And realistically, in so many ways, because of that, she's been one of my greatest teachers, as has my son in the way that he's come out. But if I then try and put all of my experience and my authority as the right way to be on them, that's too heavy. I am the adult. I need to guide them without squashing them. I need to be there for them without disempowering them. And like I say, I do not always get the balance right. And I will put my hand up to say, I know I've traumatized them in some way. I know I've not always been the best mother, but that's been my goal.
It's so good. I've often said to young people, because I used to teach at the university level, often said to them, you have to reconcile that no matter how well intended you are, you're going to mess your kids up.
Yeah.
And really, the only thing you can truly hope for as a parent is that when they're in their late teens or early 20s, they're functional enough to forgive you.
Oh, I said to my kids, I said, look, I know I've traumatized you. I know I've screwed you up, but I'm at least screwing you up in a whole new way because I'm breaking generational trauma patterns within myself. So what I'm doing, you guys are an experiment. And anytime you want to take me into therapy and say, you know what, this is how you, I'll put my hand up and go, yeah, my bad, you know, because I know I've screwed you up we just don't know how yet. You know, it's a whole new thing. But anytime you want to come and say, Mum, you could have done better, I will be there to listen, because I know I've not done it. And it's just funny having those conversations with them, because they're like, oh, we think you've done an all right job. And I'm like, yeah, you're not going to find out for a while yet. So just know that the offer's there, you know, like
Seriously. Seriously. I've got one final question for you, Amanda.
yeah.
You had a period of your life in your young adulthood where it was the lowest of lows,
Mm,
and you were able to dig yourself out of that and find the divinity within you. And by all appearances, life is good.
yeah.
What's next for you?
I honestly do not know. And I think that's part of what I've gotten comfortable with over the last couple of years. I mean, we know how easily the world got turned on its head very quickly. And I believe that what I try to live to is that nothing really is certain in this life. And so whilst I have ideas of, writing another book and, doing different things, I'm also open enough to the fact that I'm actually not in control of a lot of what's going on. So who knows? Who knows? Watch this space. I know what I'm doing today, and that's got to be enough for now.
I suppose that is the definition of being present. This has been such an insightful conversation. I've really, really
Yeah.
enjoyed our time together. How can listeners learn more about you and the work that you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So the easiest thing is just to go to my website, which is amandakate.com.au. So it has the .au for Australia, obviously. All of my social links are there, and my book's available on Amazon. I think also Barnes and Noble in the States online, and that's called Divine Messy Human: A Spiritual Guide to Prioritizing Internal Truth over External Influence.
Got it. I think I may have to steal that title for the title of this episode. I've really liked it. Divine, messy, human. I think
Yeah.
that's a perfect way to wrap up this conversation. Amanda, thank you again for your time. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much. And thank you for the work you're bringing into the world. You are so appreciated.
You can contact the show at itsnotmycredittotake.com. We'd love to hear from you. God bless.